Paul Hogan uncovers the atrocities of Linda Kozlowski divorce. Paul Hogan was born on the 8th of October, 1939, in the tiny outback town of Lightning Ridge, New South Wales, Australia, a town perhaps most famous for opal mining and tough frontier courage. His birth in the late 1930s positioned him within a generation influenced by the aftermath of the Great Depression, as well as the disruptions of World War II. While there is little that has been written about his parents and his childhood family life, Hogan's rural Australian upbringing contributed to his down-to-earth sense of humor and ordinary nature, something that would come to be his signature both in front of and behind cameras. Brought up in a working-class background, he lacked the refined trajectory of a conventional performer, but forged his own distinctive path with determination, humor, and raw charisma. As a young man, Hogan learned one of the hardest and most iconic jobs in Sydney as a rigger on the Sydney Harbour Bridge. This work demanded brawn, endurance, and a sense of heights, since riggers were in charge of inspecting and repairing the massive steel structure. The work seasoned him and grounded him in the tough fact of physical labor, but it also acquainted him with different characters and scenarios that would eventually inform his sense of humor. Perched high above the harbor's busy waters, Hogan was miles from the world of entertainment, but the work trained his senses to laugh at peril and suffering, a skill that became central to his comedic persona. Paul Hogan's initial taste of stardom was not due to careful strategy, but the result of a daring act of luck. In 1971, Hogan appeared on the New Faces program in Australia, a show aimed at promoting new and emerging performers. Hogan was not at the time a professional comedian, but the natural humor and irreverent style of humor that included self-deprecating humor, cheeky comments, and a distinctly Australian flavor that he utilized immediately resonated with audiences. His stand-up was refreshing in that it was raw, unpolished, and genuinely Australian, presenting something new compared to the frequently imported methodologies filling television. The public and the judges adored him, and Hogan soon realized he had come across something special that would take him way past the rigging work on the Harbour Bridge. Widespread popularity of his ability with comedy shortly granted Hogan the opportunity to host his own show. The Paul Hogan Show, which he not only acted in, but also created and produced, was a television phenomenon during the 1970s and early 1980s. The show featured sketch comedy format with offbeat characters, ridiculous situations, and satirical slant that mocked both mundane life as well as Australian stereotypes. Viewers loved its off-color humor, and Hogan's self-deprecation won him over millions. Its popularity crossed national boundaries and had its followers in markets such as South Africa, further solidifying Hogan's status as a performer with international appeal. They were rewarded in 1973 when Hogan took home the award for TV Week Loy for Best New Talent, a clear signal that his comedy star was on its way up. Hogan's incursion into acting started modestly. He first appeared on the big screen in 1980 as a cameo in the Australian film Fatty Finn, a lighthearted production that provided him with a small taste of the movie world. 5 years later, he took on a more substantial role as Lance Corporal Pat Clary in the television Ministry's Anzacs, a historical drama about Australian soldiers during World War I. This role allowed him to explore his acting range, proving that he could handle more serious material as well as comedy. By this point, Hogan was a well-loved television personality, but the world was about to find out about him in an even greater sense. In 1986, Paul Hogan reached international superstardom with the release of Crocodile Dundee. Not only did he act in the film, but he also co-wrote the screenplay, coming up with the story of Michael J. Dundee, a charming bushman with a larger-than-life personality. The movie, directed by Peter Femin, tracked the escapades of Dundee as he traveled through both the Australian outback and the city streets of New York, generating a comedic cultural conflict that audiences everywhere found compelling. With a relatively low budget of less than $10 million, Crocodile Dundee became a box office smash, selling hundreds of millions globally. It wasn't only a box office success, but also a cultural one, firmly establishing Australia on the cinema map and Hogan as a global household name. Crocodile Dundee's success made Hogan a critical and award-winning success. He received the Golden Globe Award for Best Actor in a Comedy or Musical Film, and his script received him an Academy Award nomination and a BAFTA nomination. Few actors make such an assertion in a debut major international film, but Hogan's charismatic presence and native comedic sense made Dundee indelible. He had accessed a universal archetype, the laid-back, good-humored stranger who could charm anyone, and people responded accordingly with excitement. After the runaway success of the original film, Hogan reappeared in Crocodile Dundee 2, 1988. Although the sequel proved commercial, the critics were lukewarm about the film and criticized it for not recreating the same fresh magic of the original. Nevertheless, Hogan's stardom continued to hold well. In 1990, he appeared in the comedy drama Almost an Angel, in which he played a small-time crook given a chance at redemption. Unfortunately, the film was both a commercial and critical disappointment. His 1994 Western comedy Lightning Jack also failed to win over critics, though Hogan's unique brand of humor was still appreciated by loyal fans. In 1996, Hogan appeared in the family movie Flipper, a retake of the original television show, as a surly uncle who befriends his nephew and a friendly dolphin. Hogan received positive reviews despite the film's failure at the box office, where it made only $20 million on a $25 million budget. Surprisingly, given its lack of money, the film received a number of nominations, a testament to Hogan's timeless talent for engaging with viewers on screen. In 1998, Hogan starred in the made-for-TV movie Floating Away, continuing to play diverse roles. Hogan revisited his most legendary character once more in 2001 with Crocodile Dundee in Los Angeles. Though the movie wasn't up to par with the success of its antecedents and was looked at as the worst of the trilogy, it signified the end for Hogan and the Dundee character that had been his career-defining role. Following the departure of Dundee, Hogan started to pull away from Hollywood and life in the spotlight, turning his attention more to life beyond the spotlight. Over the next few years, Hogan did some smaller jobs, such as the Australian comedy Strange Bedfellows, 2004, On How Two Men Pose as a Gay Couple for Money, and Charlie and Boots, 2009, a road movie with a father-son relationship theme. Both movies did well in Australia and reminded viewers of Hogan's timeless charm and humor. By 2013, though he was no longer performing regularly, Hogan appeared as a guest on Adam Hill's Tonight in a memorable turn, demonstrating that his charm and sense of humor had not dwindled with age. Paul Hogan's personal life has been characterized by enduring relationships, family obligations, and publicly reported marital issues that tended to attract as much publicity as his acting career. His first wife was Nolene Edwards, whom he married in 1958, well before he became known as a comedian or global film star. Hogan was then a young man holding blue-collar jobs in Sydney, and the marriage served to bring stability and domesticity into his early life. Hogan and Edwards had 5 children together during the span of their marriage. Through all these years, their marriage seemed to outsiders as stable and long-standing as they endured Hogan's incremental ascension from building to TV comedy and ultimately movie fame. By 1981, though, after over 20 years of marriage, the relationship had finally come to the breaking point. The couple broke up and completed a divorce that was painful and tearful, given the long term and the large number of children involved. However, their own story took an unexpected turn. Less than a year since their divorce, Hogan and Edwards decided to wed again, which indicated that there was still love and a will to fix the relationship they shared. This reunion, while promising, eventually did not work out.